Well, welcome back to the Golf Rugby Report Major League Rugby Draft show for 2021, and this is episode 3, and we'll go into episode 4 a little bit later today, just talking a little bit about some more general things, but we're going to look at who might be picked and what teams are going to pick them, and we're going to go through it pretty fast because we talked a lot about player qualities in our previous episode 2, parts 1 and 2. Have a look at those for the forwards and the backs. And so instead, we're just going to go through every team and the order that we have at the moment and talk a little bit about the potential needs for that team and who might fill that need. Quick caveat, as always, I've mentioned this several times, limit on foreign players, and Major League Rugby teams seem to be getting experienced foreign players. So it's tough to get drafted as a foreign player. It's not impossible, but it's tough to get drafted. You can get signed as a free agent. So the way we're going to look at it is that each team, I'm going to talk about perhaps the team's number one choice, the backup choice, and then a foreign option to see where we go there. So number one, of course, is Dallas. Dallas was the number one picker last year as an expansion team. And then because of the COVID problems and everything just getting started was too difficult for the Jackals, so they didn't actually start. So their selections were distributed around the country. Their number one pick, Connor Mooneyham, ended up with Austin and did very well for himself. So it was a good pick. But this time around, I think they shouldn't go for a back. I think they need to get a solid forward to build around. And pretty hard to argue against Emmanuel Albert, the Rudy Schultz Award winner. Guy who can play lock and flanker, and just all around, that's the sort of player you want, a good leader. So Albert is pretty obvious pick for me. Now, if you don't want to go with a flanker / lock, you should go for a prop. Sam Klimkowski, I think, from Notre Dame College has risen perhaps to the top of that list, so that's your second option. And your foreign option, well, Tanashi Machina or Marner Spangenberg, both from Lindenwood, as is Albert, I think probably your best bet. Again, players to build around, something like that, but I think it's going to be tough for a foreign player to get a number one pick. Number 2, Houston. All kinds of problems on the field for Houston. Had a really rough year. They trouble scoring, trouble stopping players from scoring. This is one of the times that I'm actually going to go for a back. Best player available, but also somebody who can jumpstart their offense. Tavita Lepetti, the center from St. Mary's, seems to me a no-brainer at this point, and I'd pick him as the number 2 pick. Kind of a complete departure from what I've been talking about with regard to the second option would be Colson Warner from Lindenwood, a fly half. And but you know, if anybody's going to take a fly half and say, look, it gives you some time, to work on it and work on your craft, Houston might be the best place. And another Lindenwood guy would be your foreign option, perhaps Cael Hodgson, who is a center wing and a smart player. Third pick, Seattle Seawolves. One of their problems, well, they're getting kind of old, to be honest, and so we'll see how they handle that. But I'm looking generally at defense for them, and so what I'm looking for is a young, exciting player in the forwards, probably maybe a flanker, maybe a second row, who might be able to play some defense and just inject some energy into that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 situation. So Joe Russert Cuddy would be my pick necessarily, and the other option would be Jonah Dietenberger, the second row from Lindenwood, who'd performed very well. Russert Cuddy from Colorado State. If you want to go in the foreign option, Patrick Regan from UCLA would be a really nice pick there too. Things are a little different in the number 4 pick because Toronto Arrows, I think they're going to lean Canadian, and with that in mind, we're sort of all over the place, but I think we're going to go with Emerson Pryor, their prop forward. Actually, it's kind of a no-brainer there. Wahid Hamidi is a very good number 2 option, open side flanker there, so a prop or an open side flanker, we don't know. If they want to go for somebody outside North America, George Phelan, fullback, center, wing, almost everything from Life University. San Diego. Now, San Diego's problems seem to be a lot around things like defense, set piece, winning ball, things like that. Take a little bit of a flyer here. What about Philip Dalke from U.S. Naval Academy in San Diego? Perfect spot for him. Now, I really think I'm bringing this up mostly because sometimes you've got to think about the personal decisions and the personnel decisions from a player, but it would make sense, wouldn't it? I mean, Dalke could go to D.C., obviously. He could potentially go to New Orleans, I guess, and New England, but San Diego seems to be the very best bet for him. First round pick, not sure. And then I'd be looking around and saying, well, what's the best player available, especially in the Type 5? If Klimkowski hasn't been picked, I'd go for Klimkowski. If Albert hasn't been picked, I'd go for Albert. Obviously, this is the sort of subtext throughout the pick list. If one of those people who are earlier haven't been picked, you might be considering that guy. In terms of foreign players, Sam Tarawidi from BYU, what a great open side and great option who's just sitting there. Hey, what about me? New York gets the next pick because they traded for it from DC, and so then what are we going to do there? And let's see, defense, discipline, ball retention, these are all issues New York's dealing with. I'd go for somebody who, again, still like a wide range of skills. I'd go for Chase Shore-Haskin there, and I think it'd be a good fit for him. A number 8, but he could go in at 6, probably go in at 7, do just fine. I think they'd do nicely there. I'm thinking about actually still Colson Warner might still be out there as a second option. And yes, he's a fly half. It's a completely different situation, but I kind of think that New York needs a little depth at the number 10 position anyway. In the foreigner option, Spangenberg or Tarawidi are probably available at this point if you really want to go that direction. But again, we're talking about foreigner, very difficult. Austin Gilgronis, I think they're probably relatively happy with their backline situation at this point. What about the scrum? Just sort of like that, setting the platform for that offense to shine. That might be a thing. So I kind of feel like Austin's should be looking at the front row. We could talk about Anthony Adamczyk from Penn State. We could talk about Timothy Olwyn from Arkansas State University. Both really good props. And solidify that front row a little bit. You got to get started somewhere on the front row, don't you? If they want to go backline, then they go Palima Roberts, Labi Koi-Larbi, somebody like that in your second option. With George Phelan probably still waiting around to be picked. So there's a lot of options for Austin. Austin's a little bit more freer in terms of what they could pick. New England, if I'm looking at New England, I'm looking at scrum, I'm looking at a defense, I'm looking also at a power runner, somebody in tight who can run for you. Peter Reyes, who can play prop and flanker. David McCaskill. These are good options, I think, for New England. Hey, if Klimkowski's still available, that's great. Jump on that too. And foreign option, Gerald Lowe from Kutztown, who's a flanker. This would be less of a power runner so much as just really fast. New Orleans, I'm looking at the back line. So we take the option that we were thinking about with Austin on their second option, Labi Koi-Larbi or Palima Roberts, thinking about that. And what about, I'm really not big on getting a wing for your first round, right? But Aaron Gray would be a really electric addition to New Orleans. I think that might be fun. Foreign option, Hugo Minar, the fly half from Iowa Central Community College. Interesting pick too. Again, it's somebody you can nurture through in that number 10 position. But there are a lot of pretty exciting attackers there, just not leaning toward them early on in the draft. New York comes back with another pick. I'm thinking maybe we look at the hookers. We look at somebody like Tom Capriati, George Sharp. Somebody like that would be a good option there. And Utah had a pretty good season, but gave up a lot of points. So let's talk about some people who might be able to cut that back down. They do have an exciting backline. I'm probably pretty happy with their backline the Warriors are. So a number of Eagles in that group. So I'm going to draft someone to just turf out Calvin Whiting. I don't think that's going to happen. But you might get Kelton Christensen, local guy for second row, or maybe Asa Carter from Arkansas State, another second row. Both of these guys can play some tough D. If you wanted to go a little bit further afield, James O'Neill, who's a Canadian flanker who really can play defense, or Peter Reyes, if he's still available, prop / flanker, who can hit hard. So these are all sort of defensive-minded choices, and it's funny because talked about Reyes being a power runner, and now I'm talking about him being defensive, but you can be both. Atlanta is an interesting team because they did fairly well, but did they finish off the possession that they had? Is there the right connection between the 8 and the 7? So I'm having a look at fly half or inside back in some way. Case Fleck, Jacob Sunday might be fun to pick somebody like that. Is Roberts still available? Nike Roberts, the Life University player. Or Nick D'Angelo, if you want to go for a foreign option. But we're looking at, and he's a 9/10. Carmen Consolino, also a 9/10, might be an option there. Be interesting to see. You look at that and you think about rugby being a team of parts, front row or tight 5, and then your back row, and you've got to have your deep 3, and it's just like you've got to link all of those together. How do they get linked together? And maybe we blame halfbacks a bit too much. Maybe it's got something to do with just how the forwards are working with the backs, something like that. But, let's get a little more competition to the halfback.
All right, well, we didn't go into grand detail with DCL Glory because they don't pick in the first round. So they're the only one we're going to talk about too much in the second round. And I think we're going to lean toward, if we don't have any of the front rowers that we've been talking about available, maybe we go for some more mobile players, some more versatile players like Cody Earhart, Ivan Delgado from Western Michigan, another Western Michigan guy. We talked about Joey Backey, who we rate pretty highly, and also Isaac Bale. So a few guys who are sort of maybe loose forward / hooker type, something like that. I think that might be an interesting move for DCL Glory going forward.
If I'm the LA Galtinis, I'm looking around for someone just to solidify the tough positions where you can get a lot of injuries. Tight 5, maybe even tight 5 / back row. Anthony Adamczyk is probably still available, possibly still available at the prop. McCaskill might be still available at the prop. Campbell Robinson, haven't mentioned him yet, number 8 / lock. Also available. Dalke might be an option. Also from Navy, because LA is on the coast, and there would be an option for him to be able to serve and still play. So these are all things where, the team that's picking number 1 is thinking, we got to fix everything, and you end up going tight 5. And the team that was picking last in the round, we were champions. Well, let's go tight 5. What the heck? So I'm not going to go through line by line on the next 2 rounds because we've talked about philosophy then. What we will see, I think, is that we're going to see a little bit of a flyer from some teams in the 3rd round, especially, possibly in the 2nd round. So I think we're going to see Joey Backey get picked. We should see Joey Backey get picked. We might see a flyer on a couple of the overseas players who have drifted down because we know they're good. But, we're going to give up a spot for that. What I do think is that we're going to see some players like Calvin Gentry, Caleb Strum, and the outside backs, and Carmen Consolino, Ken Kurihara, who's a foreign product, but... And I've talked about Brendan Urbanski from Central Michigan. He's sort of become this symbol now of players from Division II or lower division teams who might be able to bubble up. And we've seen players do that because they show something in their film. We've seen it in terms of workouts. For some of the higher division players like Jonah Dietenberger and Sam Kunkowski, we mentioned that. Peter Reyes as well a little bit in terms of his video. Just sort of made a few people turn around and say, oh, wait, what about this guy? But what about some of the players from lower division teams? Now, if you're in your third round, you're not picking someone to start. That would be unwise, right? You're in bigger problems if you're looking for a starter in the third round. But you could be looking for someone who you could mold. You could look at Decor Davis from Queen's University Charlotte. We talked about him in the previous episode. Lists himself as a number 8, not really a number 8. We could look at Cecilia Tawi-Kavea from Weber State, the hooker, or Ivan Delgado, another front rower from Western Michigan, or Dylan Shotwell from Sam Houston State, another front rower. These are players who might be really good, worth the risk for a third-round pick. Zachary Bastris, Northern Colorado back, another one perhaps to think about. These are players that might bubble up because a team looks around, doesn't anticipate a specific need now, but will be looking for a specific need down the road if they're smart. All right, so that should do it for us for this episode. We do have one more episode to go where we'll talk a little bit about some more general things on the draft and what to look for. I'm Alex Goff. Thank you for watching. And if you want to support what we do, help us pay for all the expenses we have, which are a lot. Please go to golfrugbyreport.com/support-GRR, and you can see how you can support what we do as well. And we'll see you next time.